Hi, I'm Teresa from Phoenix Gate Crafts, and today I'm probably going to tell you the thing that you didn't want to hear if you're planning to start selling your handcrafted items. So to make this a little easier for me, I'm going to be making a little cat toy. I figure this will keep me a little bit. Well, my ADD's been acting up. This might help me with focus a little bit more. Not to mention, this can be a hard pill to swallow for some people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Just need to make sure I'm starting off on the right foot with my little project. So the thing that I'm going to tell you that you're not going to like is that if you're going to be going into business selling anything, be it a fully formed craft such as these little cat toys, or if it's dyed yarn or another craft item, I'm going to tell you that you need a business plan. And I know that as an art type, you probably don't want to. But I'm telling you that if you don't, you're shooting yourself in the foot. And here's why. Because yes, it's true that some people can just fall into a business. You already have a client base in person, so if you start your Etsy store, you already have a demographic that's partially found you. Expanding on that is easy. But most of us are not starting from that luxurious standpoint. Most of us are starting from a sort of ground zero where we don't have a following. We don't have existing clientele. We don't have anybody that we're pulling from somewhere else to follow us to a new platform. And whenever you're in a situation, be an existing business, or even if you're starting from scratch, you want to go in with more than half an idea. You want to go in with a fully formed plan. Just to give you a little background, I got my bachelor's in entrepreneurship and marketing from Sac State in 2009, December 2009. I then went on a few years later, starting in 2012 and achieving it in 2014. I got my master's in marketing, my MBA in marketing. So I'm not saying this from a point of view where this is what I'm told. I'm also telling you this from a point of experience. I started my Etsy store with no idea on what I was doing, just a half-baked idea of selling fully formed crocheted items, and it didn't do well. Now, admittedly, a lot of new businesses don't do well the first year. There's a high overhead because you have to purchase the yarn. You have to make sure you have enough supplies to sell, but chances are you're not going to be making very much money. I sold a whopping $35 worth of merchandise the only half year that I was in business on Etsy. However, I also have gotten into a business as a tutor. I own my own tutoring company where I hire tutors. Basically, what I do with my tutoring company is I have tutors who go into a client's home and do one-on-one in-home tutoring. If you need tutoring, go to Clubsy In-Home Tutoring. We are a national franchise. I purchased my particular location in 2019. However, in order to do that, I really needed to sit down and have a plan. My franchise already existed and had been in business for about 15 years, but that didn't mean that I didn't need to know where I was going, what I needed to do, I needed to have a plan. I had very limited finances, and I needed to make sure that I was allocating those finances responsibly. Entrepreneur is a French term that means risk taker. And a lot of times entrepreneurs are seen as kind of magicians because they take on these super risky ventures and then they're able to actually make money off of it. And the truth of the matter is that there's no magic behind it. There's nothing but research behind making money. You look at every single possible angle, every potential point of failure, and you come up with a plan for that eventuality. A lot of people would consider this a pessimistic point of view, but in truth, being prepared for the worst case scenario means that it will never happen. I mean, let's face it, I started a tutoring company in 2019, not knowing that the coronavirus was just around the corner and nobody would want strangers in their homes for a solid year. We are just starting to recover from that. It was a worst possible year to get into business. But I managed to survive, and that's because I had a plan for failure. So finding a business plan template online is very easy. You just have to Google business plan template, and a ton of them will pop up. If you're making a business plan for a bank or something to try and get a loan, it is a bit of a different thing than if you're making one for yourself, because you do have to impress the bank person. But I'll give you a tip. Banks don't loan money to new businesses. Most banks require that a business has been in business for 2 years before they'll give them any kind of loan. So I wouldn't even bother looking, because new business loans are few and far between. But considering that you're doing an arts and crafts business, there's usually a fairly low overhead because your first year can be based on stuff you already have. You already have some yarn. You probably just need a bit more. That's an expense you probably were going to have anyway. So if you're making this business plan for yourself, you really don't need to worry about the executive summary. That's always the first part in any business plan, and it's actually the last thing you write because you summarize everything that you write in all the other sections. So just because you're skipping the executive summary for yourself doesn't mean you don't want to go through every other section of the business plan. The first thing you'll want to do is have the company description. So this is going to have your business description. It's going to have your list of products or services. You're going to want to talk about everything in detail, including cost breakdown, as well as what you're going to be charging clients. Get as detailed as you possibly can. If you're going into business with anybody, you'll even want to discuss in this section who takes out the trash. Get as detailed as you possibly can. This will really help you with your vision, help you figure out how things are going to work, and you're going to mitigate a few crises because you don't want to be arguing with your business partner over whose turn it is to take out the trash. If you just have somebody assigned to that chore, or if you realize you have the funds to have a cleaning crew come in at night to do it for you, all the better, because at that point it's one less thing you're going to be fighting about. Then you want to have a mission statement. So this doesn't have to be supreme or grand. It could just be something as simple as wanting to produce beautiful yarn for beautiful people. You also want to have lay out your management. You also want to lay out your key team members. You're going to want to have a hierarchical structure. You want to have a plan if you ever need to hire anybody, because, creating things by hand is not a fast process. In order to speed it up, you do need help sometimes. And determining that line where you need to actually make the decision to hire additional people will help you prepare for the future. You'll want to have goals and milestones planned. Realize that you're not going to make the money you think you're going to make unless you have an existing client base. You're going to want to kind of plan for that. You're going to want to have an expected course that this business is going to run. You want it generally to be on an incline. You want it over time to be gaining clientele and thereby gaining money, and you need to plan how to do that. You also need to analyze the market. And part of this is also planning where you plan to sell your items or your services. So you want to do what's called a SWOT analysis. Analyze your own business and your own market and realize your personal strengths, your weaknesses, the opportunities in the market, as well as the threats in the market. See what your competition is. You really want to analyze at this point the different places where you could be selling. You might be inclined to make your own website, but if you can't get sufficient traffic to your website to purchase something, Etsy might actually be a more viable option for you. And you really need to analyze the costs and the benefits of making these kinds of decisions. You also want to have a marketing plan. It's not enough that you're selling on Etsy or another platform. You need to figure out how to get to your market, talk to them, and tell them, hey, you need to visit my shop and buy something. So you need to have a plan for that. It needs to be online. You might have a grassroots campaign. You might decide to do some selling in person at trade shows or farmers markets or anything like that. You need to have a plan for it because marketing is an area that sadly you're not going to see immediate results from, but it takes clients a good solid 5 or 6 exposures to your company before they're like, maybe I should check this out. I mean, how many of us have checked out Wish just because we've seen the Facebook ads so many times? I mean, exposure works, and you have to figure out how to access your client base and how to convince them that you're worthwhile and you're worth their time and their money and that you're trustworthy. You need a plan for internal marketing to existing clients. You need a plan for external marketing, and you need a plan for online marketing. You also have to analyze risk. And at this point, I also recommend a section that I didn't put in my business plan, but I'd call it law. And this is where you plan you do a risk analysis basically, and you see what are the chances of failure. And be honest with yourself. Be very critical, because the more critical you are, the more you plan for failure, the higher your chances of success because you're mitigating that risk. You also want to check out your company structure because you do need a business license if you want to make this a professional gig. You need to decide if you're going to be a sole proprietorship, if you're going to be an LLC, an LLP, depending on what state you're in, an S-class corporation, a C corporation. You want to actually make a informed decision on what form your company is going to take. Now, typically, if you're selling online, just handcrafted items, and sole proprietorship works. But you want to make sure you understand the risk factors. You'll want to consult with a lawyer, and you'll want to consult with a tax accountant to see the costs and the benefits of each form of business, because some may be better for you, than others, completely dependent upon your own situation. So I definitely recommend having a legal section. In addition, something that you're going to want to invest in is insurance, because anytime that you're dealing in something that could potentially harm someone, if you're dealing in fiber, someone might have an allergic reaction. If you're dealing in something like soap, you could have somebody who has an allergic reaction, responds very poorly to the fragrance oil that you used. Somebody could try to eat it. If you're knitting or crocheting, your item might get destroyed somehow. It might shrink in the wash, even though you put washing instructions in it. If you're dealing with garments, you do need to have tags. If your item gets destroyed somehow, you're probably going to need to prepare for the eventuality that a cat might eat some of the yarn from it, or a baby might wind up accidentally strangling themselves. So having insurance helps protect you from unforeseen events. Mostly people being dumb with your item, but it'll protect you because it'll create a source of money if you do have to wind up going to court or if you get sued. And also, if you are selling in physical places, like inside other stores or at farmers markets or something, a lot of times the shopkeeper or the person running the event is going to require that you have your own insurance as well as paying for the space. So a lot of these places require that you have $1 million or $1 million policies. So do your research into what you're doing and see if you can get insurance. So definitely make sure you know where you are planning to sell and what the insurance requirements are for that. And insurance and liability is definitely something you'll want to discuss with a lawyer as well. You'll also want to have a financial analysis, and this is the part that I most strongly recommend not bullshitting your way through. And it's the easiest part to bullshit your way through. The financial analysis is the part that nobody wants to deal with because it's the bad news part. It's the part that tells you, if you look at it honestly and do your research, it's going to tell you that you're not going to make more than $35 in your first year. It's the part that tells you that Etsy is a saturated market and you're really going to have to fork out for marketing if you're going to want to make it. But do that. Plan for failure in your first year. Plan for failure in your second year. Hope to break even in your third year. And by doing that and being honest with yourself, you're going to get over a lot of your fears and trepidations for getting into business. You'll want to analyze everything. Cost of shipping, cost of materials. You want to figure out in this section the best way to minimize your costs and maximize your income, because you're going to need to do that. Expect to be broke the first year, hope to break even the second or the third, and hope to make money from there on out. After that, all you have to do is your conclusion, and if you're only making this for yourself, you don't really need a conclusion because it's just restating what you've already figured out throughout the entire document. And if you're wondering what length this document should be, well, I have one here with a conclusion, an executive summary, and 3 appendices with graphs and charts. Mine is a whopping 18 pages. Yours could be longer. Yours could be shorter. Just be prepared for it to be more than 3 to 5 pages that you're used to writing for a high school essay. But also realize that this might be a very critical look at what you're planning to do. It may be heartbreaking. It may be the thing that convinces you not to go into business. But if you're a very creative mind, if you work your way around each of the problems, if you make a business plan, you have a much higher chance of success. And if you don't believe that statement, realize that I got into a brand new to me business the year before COVID hit, in a business that requires me to go into strangers' homes. And I've managed to survive because I had a business plan and I expected something to go wrong, though I'll be honest, I didn't expect a global pandemic to be it. So anyway, I wish you all the best of luck. Please, please, please do the business plan. Please, please, please just see it as an exercise in planning your business and foreseeing problems. And good luck. Happy crafting. Bye.